I was saying there's basically only three reasons an investor ever rejects you. Either you don't have proof of demand, you haven't proven you can supply that demand, or they haven't met you. I said like pretty much every reason an investor ever says no to you is either supply, demand, or they just don't know who you are, is my theory.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Basic laws of supply and demand, but it's more complicated once you execute on it.
Well, I feel like investors are usually betting on future demand.
Yes, definitely. But I feel like without some sort of data that they can project from a starting point to that future demand, you're just begging, basically.
What it
Which I
feels
guess
like.
you are. Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at begging.
Yeah, you got to be good at begging.
Yeah, well said. You've got number one grossing in the App Store since we last did this.
Number one grossing.
That weren't you? A top paid
No,
app, whatever it was.
top, yeah, most review count.
Whatever, close enough.
I
Still
mean,
equates
I
to
wish
money.
I think they're pretty different. Review counts don't pay the bills, but
But they can't review it unless they've bought it, correct?
that's true. Yeah, that's
Oh,
true. It's a
hey,
signal.
yeah, that's a signal. That's a very
You
good
can
one.
you can do things to to suggest people should leave reviews. So it's not a perfect metric to compare sales.
Yeah, fair enough. What's up, Brandon? Yeah, Ryan, I thought today we'll let people filter in, but you know, something I've been thinking a lot about is it seems like I think there's an over focused on fundraise from AR/VR founders, over focus on fundraise and an over focus on product, which I will take also full responsibility for because I've. What's up, Renji? How are you? Hey,
Yeah, what's up,
you
Randy?
know, welcome up. Renji did a great talk a few weeks ago as well about his crowdfund and everything. It's very cool. Um, By the way, Renji Thomas in the audience, Thomas Suarez, he's building AR hardware and he's like I think he raised from Lightspeed as a 17-year-old kid or something. He's pretty awesome if you want to chat with him or Thomas, maybe ping Renji. He's also doing hardware. But yeah, so anyways, Ryan, there's this over focus on fundraising and there's an over focus on product. And as I've started to really like learn more about business and how you generate demand, um, I've started to get into some of the technicals of this. Like, what are the AI tools that work? How do you map out the wording for your hooks on your marketing? Like, do you have, 60 landing pages and you pay a little bit of ads? Like, all that stuff, I think, is something that really I've overlooked in the last year as far as like trying to teach people that. So I was hoping maybe that's something we could go through today and make it a little more like granular or technical on how people should actually be setting up systems so that they're getting traction. Is that something that you'd be open to talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I will not claim to be an expert. I think it's something that we're also trying to figure out.
Uh-huh.
But it's something that I've got a bit of experience with, and I can definitely outline. It's been a pretty big change since we launched to
Yeah.
now, where it's like when when you years ago, all you had to do is be on the store and have a pretty decent experience, and you would get exposure. And like with the changes that have been made on the storefront, and just with the change to the demographic and stuff like that, it's a completely different ballgame, and you've got to figure out how to market your own product now.
Yeah. And is that something that changed since Meta updated their store requirements and all that in the last 6 months?
And the store changes didn't help,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But I think it's kind of been trending in that way, that direction anyway.
Hmm.
The stores are, pretty incentivized to show new experiences and like kind of double down on the ones that are the most generally interesting. And I think one of the areas where Meta has not done a particularly good job on the store is I don't think they're doing a great job of personalizing content based on, some sort of demographic modeling or whatever. Like the fact that as a, person in their late 30s, I'm getting the same content as like my 8-year old son doesn't make a ton of sense because we like completely different experiences. So I think the store itself is kind of a shit show and it just like hasn't really matured very much. I also think that experiences like ours or like Renji's, we're not in the middle of the bell curve for kind of the way that VR is going right now. It's like trending towards kids and free to play, lower quality
Mm,
experiences. And we're on the opposite end of that. So for all those reasons, like it's been more and more important for us to take growth and marketing into our own hands.
okay. That's perfect then. Because I mean, if you think about, I guess, just the comparison of the Apple App Store, if you were on the App Store in the first 2 years, you were making money, like even with a crappy app, basically. But then as it became more populated and open, the same thing happened, right? Like now it's more of a you eat what you kill.
Yeah,
Um,
no one's really, not that many people are discovering apps by going to the App Store anymore.
yeah.
For Apple, for sure, right? There are just too many out there. I think Apple does a pretty good job of featuring stuff in App of the Day and things like that. Like if you do get into the
Mhm.
charts on Apple, you'll get a lot of traffic. But uh, yeah, the Meta Store is just a mess. Like it seems like they just try something new every day, and it's like doesn't seem like anyone's actually measuring the performance of it. And anytime we have conversations with them about it, it's just like sort of demoralizing.
Well,
Sorry.
that's okay. No,
I'll
listen,
put my optimistic hat on, but it is time to like take control of your own destiny.
every challenge is an opportunity. What you're really saying is the opportunity here to separate yourself as a store app is to go figure out how you own your distribution channels and control that through cost and through measurement. So that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today. That's the trend that I see is happening, across the whole industry right now. Um, so you have your advantage because you've already acquired a bunch of users, but then also you have a disadvantage because now you need to like set up something that's working at a larger scale than the average startup in a fairly short amount of time. So how all right, I love that topic. So can you maybe talk about what is your current pipeline for generating leads? Or maybe you have a different term for it. I don't know how you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, we just call the whole thing growth, right? Just we're looking to get people to install the game. Um, one other big problem with Meta is like marketing attribution is not very good at all. It's like pretty much entirely broken, so it's really hard to track installs all the way through. So because of that, we have what's that?
How is that a thing? It's like Meta. They're literally an ad platform. That's wild.
Yeah, they clearly didn't put the A team on this effort, but anyway, it's been broken forever. So you can run Facebook and Instagram ads, and you can attach those to your app ID. And in that scenario, the tracking does work very well, and you're able to get a cost per download that seems fairly reliable. So that's kind of our first one is like it's really hard to spend a bunch of money marketing on other platforms if you have no idea what your conversion looks like. The other benefit of running on the Meta platform is you can actually target people that own a headset. So now you are sending ads to people that definitely own a headset. So they're going to be significantly higher intent than people who don't own a headset. The problem with that is you hit saturation very quickly. I think there may be a couple million, a few million people in that list. And a big
Mhm.
part of the reason that list isn't bigger is because Meta took away the Facebook requirement. When they had that Facebook requirement, they could associate your Meta, your account with Facebook, and then that way it was easy to serve ads and easy to know that this Facebook user has a headset. Once they decoupled that, then it became harder to target people on Facebook or Instagram, that own headsets because the accounts are completely decoupled. I'm sure they could figure that out, but it doesn't seem like they've decided to do that. So that's the most obvious way. Like I would recommend everybody that has a VR app to go run some ads on Meta and Instagram. You can set very small budgets. You're gonna get, cost per download. They're one of the best ad networks out there, and you can target people that have headsets. So I would recommend doing that for everybody.
And so when you're doing that, are you measuring are you driving people to landing pages that describe the product, or are you driving everyone straight to your store page? And basically, what you're measuring is the different copy and how much click through rate that gets to your store page. Okay.
So yeah, one of the limitations with the that approach, if you go through this kind of meta channel where you're connecting it to this VR app, is it does take you directly to the store page. And that's actually fine. I think that for at least for us, I think taking you to a landing page would not convert as well anyway, because it would be an extra click and everything. So
And
taking you directly to the store page is how it works.
I'm not familiar. I'm sure you get this data, but you get that information from Meta on your conversion of like how many people see your page versus how many people pay. Okay. And you didn't have to set that up. That's just all standard.
Well, Meta has funnel metrics and stuff like that, but if you do it through ads, you see how many people click, so you get like cost per click, and then you get conversions on top of that. So for the ads, you do have like kind of a perfect funnel. Meta does give you some data about how many people are hitting your page and how many people are downloading from finding it in the store versus finding it in search versus Horizon feed. And those numbers have always been a bit off from what we see. So it's been a little harder to trust those numbers, but the ad numbers seem to be legit.
Okay. So phase one is going through the Instagram channels, feeding people directly to your land or your checkout page, your product page.
Yeah. And then
Um,
some of the things so that's like the very basic. For everybody, I would start with that. And, you can do as little as like $100 a week or whatever, just to sort of see what it looks like. And then, you end up with a customer acquisition cost, right? So how much is it actually costing to get someone to use the app? If you're a free to play app, then that's like only one piece of the equation. The other piece of the equation is like, what's the lifetime value of this specific customer that came through this channel? Because customers that come through different channels have pretty different lifetime values if you're not monetizing up front. So that's where the system really starts to break down, because you find out that this person bought your app or installed it, but then there's absolutely no way to then track that person after that fact. So once they load into your app, you have no idea where this new user came from, um, which is a big problem, because then it's really impossible to track like LTV by
right.
cohort, which definitely sucks. But
So what you're saying, just so I understand, is like you measure someone, they paid you, you can measure up to the point of paying you, but as soon as they pay you, then you lose track of them going forward once they go into the app.
well, yeah, once they go into the app, you have absolutely no data to identify
Wow.
that this person came from a specific source. So it's like you're completely blind when they come
So if
into
they
the app.
buy the new golf carts and with the TV screen on it and the new driver covers, you have no way to know that they came from this Facebook ad last year. Okay, so that's a problem. That makes
We have no
sense.
way of knowing. Yeah, Meta does not share any data for us to know that. So part of what we've done is, because we really want to understand this funnel, I find it's almost impossible to improve things until you have a really good way of measuring things. So we always try to focus on like what measurements do we need to like actually make informed decisions here, so that we can double out on the stuff that's working and ignore the stuff that's not. So we have a big set of questions during onboarding to try to get as much information as we can. How did you hear about us? Through ads, through social, through friends, through other sources. We ask you questions about whether you're a golfer or not, and like, what kind of what information you're looking to get from Golf Plus, or what experience you want to have. And the more we can kind of understand somebody, the easier it is for us to sort of guess where they came from. But it's a very lossy process, and like, people can answer however they want, so it's not perfect. So that's one of the challenges with the approach, is like post install, you're kind of in the dark. The other thing that we do is we ask people for email as part of the onboarding process. It's a skippable step, but we get about 50% of people submitting and verifying their emails. And the benefit of that is it does allow us to do some tracking. It allows us to do a few things. We don't get email if people click on the ads and go directly to the Meta store and like buy that way. But we have been testing ads that do take you to a landing page. They're separate ads, so they're not targeted at just headset owners. They're targeted at everybody. But they take you to a landing page, and the call to action there is to give us your email, so that, over time we can try to convert you. And then once you get Golf Plus and you put in the same email, we're able to match that. And then we do know exactly where this person came from, because we were along for the ride from the very beginning. So the big trade-off there is it doesn't convert nearly as well in terms of getting people to download the app because most of the ads that you're running are going to people that don't own headsets, so they're much lower intent. But you can track them all the way through, and then you have a much better understanding of your customer. And from what we've seen so far, those customers do have a significantly higher LTV than our average customer, because they've gone through quite a bit more friction. And in a lot of cases, they're buying a headset, just to play Golf Plus.
That was
So
my next question. Yeah, because if you're getting someone that maybe doesn't own a headset, you can actually sell headsets by intriguing them enough. Like if they love golf, they'll probably buy a headset just for you.
yeah, so like last year, I think we started doing this in August of last year or so, and at first, like the conversion rates were really poor. Even from the people we got emails from, the number that were actually buying our game was pretty bad. But then
Mhm.
in December, it like really spiked. So it seems like a lot of people were kind of waiting for the holiday to then go buy the headset. So it is like it's a much longer term play. You can't judge it in a week time. You have to like really give it some time to kind of understand that some people might wait, 6 months or a year to buy a headset, but like long term, hopefully you'll get somebody.
Interesting. Okay, so you have kind of two buckets, at least so far. The first bucket is immediate cash now. We take you straight to the product page. We know you own a headset. You can pay us today, which
Yep.
is obviously ideal, but it's a smaller subset of people. And then
Yep.
bucket two is a much larger subset of people, but they're not as prepared to buy. And so, to your point, you might need to wait till Christmas 2025 until they all get their new headset, and then they're looking for a game, and you hit them with the email at that point. But that's
Exactly.
trackable. Yeah.
It's trackable, and we're tracking this on a monthly basis. So every month we kind of understand what those cohort numbers look like over an
Mhm.
extended period of time. And that allows us to do like longer term modeling so that we can kind of invest today knowing that it won't pay off for 12 months, but we do know that like on average it has paid off this amount over time.
Cool.
So that's been an important part of the process too, is just like cohort tracking over time so that we know that, some of these investments will take longer, but it's worth doing now.
Um, I mean, I guess that do you have anything you can say no? Do you have anything you can show us as far as the process? Because this is something I'm personally going through. I think everyone is going through some version of this. Um, like I'm trying to map out, how many people see my page, what percentage of them come to the events, like who RSVPs versus attendees, right? Like I have my own metrics in my funnel. And it's been quite a challenge to figure out how I set that up in like a simple enough way to where I'm not tracking every single bit of data and then never actually getting value from that data set. If you don't have something to show, that's fine on screen share. But like, is there something you can talk about on how you think about that and formulate the team around a direction with
Yeah,
measurements?
I go to our marketing guy Matt and ask him to set this up and then report the results back to me. So that's
Sounds
how I
way
do it.
easier. That
I've
sounds
had
way
someone
easier.
who's done it before and then they explain it to me so I can tell you how we do it. But I don't actually, I haven't done
Yeah.
the sort of weedy parts.
And so, as the CEO, are you giving Matt goals like, hey, this is what you need to do this month, and then letting him run free? Or how do you oversee that so
No,
it's in the right direction?
at least for me, I found it much better to let people set their own goals because oftentimes they'll set, more ambitious goals than I would set. And frankly, this is an area that I still consider a little bit of kind of R&D. Like nobody, there's not a lot of data out there around how VR marketing should work. So it does feel like we're having to try a lot of things and it's hard to set expectations that we can hold people accountable to if we don't really know what to expect. So so yeah, I think we worked together with Matt and our business team. James, you played with me and James at Pebble that one time. And
Chipped in 3 times.
yeah, I know that was still we still talk about it. So we work together as a team to kind of for us it's less about setting an upfront goal and it's more about continuous improvement. If you can, every couple weeks we review the results. We say like, what did we test? What did we with every test we do need to set an expectation and like I couldn't care less if we hit that expectation or not, but the process of setting it is really important because that allows us to learn like what worked, what didn't work next month. Like let's set a better expectation based on what we know, and then once you've done that for 6 months you do start to get pretty good at it. So for us, it's more about building momentum and kind of understanding the trade-offs of each different approach, always trying to try something new every month that may or may not work, just in case we find a breakthrough. And then the other big thing is like, if like if your goal as a business is to get hypothetically like 1,000 new installs a week, and you have a campaign that's currently getting 10 installs a week, like don't spend time trying to make that 10% better because that's waste of time. Like you're not going to go from 10 to 11 to 1,000. It's like, okay, cool, good to know. Spend exactly 0% of your time on this thing that got us 10 and go spend all of your time on something that's going to get us 500, because we can go from 500 to 1,000. We're not going to go from 10 to 1,000. So a lot of it is like not spending extra time on the stuff that's not working and just very quickly abandoning things that aren't working if the expectations are way off. Rather than sort of trying to optimize, small stuff. It's like, let's try something new to kind of go after some big things. So I think setting some understanding of like, what does success look like here at a high level, like 1,000 a week. Like if that's our goal, that's kind of what success looks like. Let's sort of work backwards from there and on a regular basis, understand how are these different components adding up to get us to 1,000. And maybe, the 10 installs a week thing is like, okay, obviously that's not very close to 1,000, but it's a set it and forget it. We'll have that 10 every month. So that brings the goal down to 990. Don't spend any more time on it. But if it can run by itself, like keep it going and, find a way to do 99 more of those or find a way to get after something bigger. So I think a lot of it really just comes down to consistent communication and reprioritization.
That's very interesting. So you really prioritize the process of getting the planning correct more
Not the
than
planning, the execution. I don't care about the planning. The planning doesn't mean much to me. Like you could come with the best plan in the world. All I care about are the results. So it's like you come to me and say, "Hey, I've got this amazing plan that's going to get us 1,000 a week." I'm going to say, "Great, go after it." And then 2 weeks, we're going to review the results. And if you show me it's got 10 results, I'm like, "Well, I don't really care how good you thought your plan was. Like the results don't add up. So what's your plan for the next week?" So like
right.
I I I prefer to come up with the smallest plan possible. That's like the least complicated, just like very simple fundamental stuff, and test those out as quickly as possible so you at least understand which path is likely to lead to a good outcome, rather than putting together this like multi-month marketing plan and it's like you launch it and find out that like it's not resonating whatsoever and we just wasted a bunch of time.
Okay. Um, yeah, what I'm trying to say is because it was interesting earlier how you were talking about how you sit down with Matt and then you think through like what are realistic goals and then let him go achieve that one way or the other, then revisit that. So yes, it's all based on results, but you're like really what you're doing is you're refining your two's ability to do this stuff, like think through the correct direction. And then if you decide you took the wrong direction, which you'll know in 2 weeks because your iteration cycles are that fast, then you say, okay, like why were we thinking incorrectly 2 weeks ago? And then you change that. And then, okay. So it's just a huge iteration process.
It's yeah, everything. I mean, I think everything that we do, like on the product side and the
Uh,
growth side, and every side is like trying to speed up iteration as much as possible, because there's so much unproven in this space, and because things are also changing so fast in this space, especially now with AI and tooling. Um, the tighter we can make that loop, the faster we can course correct if things are not working the way we expect them to.
yeah, that was my next question. So I'm glad you went there around like the experimental side of this. So organic marketing, you have a very visual product. You have a very uh like inherently viral product because if you love golf, you love golf. So like organic marketing is an experimenting side of this. The AI tools for, whether it's outreach or automated content generation, like how are you thinking about the experimental side? What are some of the things you're trying to test out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been spending a lot of time on AI, trying to understand what it can do and what it can't do, and I'm still doing a lot of development myself. So from a dev perspective, It's like the greatest thing I've ever used. I think I'm like legitimately 5 times faster than I was, 6 months ago or a year ago. And each day a new tool comes out, and I finally switched over to using Cursor, and it's like, holy shit, this is crazy. I'm like so much faster than I was before. I'm trying to get everyone on our team to use it. So I'm kind of all in on it. I think, yeah, from a coding perspective, the thing that's entirely clear to me, and I know they're definitely gonna be debates, and I think there's gonna be a person in the loop for quite a long time. But the thing that's entirely clear to me is like these tools are only gonna get better. AI is only gonna get better, faster, smarter at coding. And there's a future that's probably not that far away where, AI code is just objectively much better than like 99% of human code. And these AI agents are going to get, much better at process and stuff like that. So I think it's absolutely critical that anyone that's relying on software at least starts to understand how these things work and where they excel and where they struggle. And I think a big part of it is just understanding how you kind of communicate with the AI and how you course correct it when it goes down the wrong path. And it's like very, very similar problems to working with a junior dev
Right.
or even an average dev in a lot of cases where, if you're not clear with your communication, like you're not going to get the result that you want, but the better and more clear you can be and the more objective you can be, the better result you're going to get. So that's like a bit of a tangent just in terms of the AI coding side of things. And I'm very, yeah, optimistic that, it's going to be a great thing for smaller teams that can adopt these new tools faster, and every engineer can become 5 engineers, and, you can hopefully get a lot more done and also just do a lot more testing so that your app is more stable. On the content side, we've like created a blog, and we've been trying to put a lot of golf content out there. Golf is like an extremely fragmented world. There's no like one site that everybody goes to for their golf content. And I see that as a huge opportunity, especially with the power of AI to figure out what that site would look like and how it would be populated, and what content would exist and how to make that content dynamic. So that's something that we're starting to explore. Is like, thankfully a while ago I bought golfplus.ai, so that's a thing. We're not using it right now, but I do foresee a future where we kind of think about if we could make this cool aggregator AI driven site that you can go to and interact, and it'll surface golf content, and it'll answer any golf question that you have and stuff like that. That becomes a great funnel for people to discover Golf Plus. Then we can funnel them into the game, because we know that they're high intent people that at least have an interest in golf, and we don't really have to monetize the website in the meantime because our monetization is through the app. So that's how I've been thinking about sort of AI content, is like just become a hub for the niche of people that your product works for. And then kind of subtly introduce them to your product over time, but hopefully they're just coming back to your site because it's creating some sort of value for them.
Do you see that golfplus.ai as a media brand? I mean,
Uh,
it's a content media
yeah, I
company,
don't see it
right?
as a media brand because our goal is not to create our own content. It is more like an aggregator, I guess. I guess I used to use Flipboard a lot back in the day. I don't know why it feels like it doesn't work well anymore, but uh, back
Still
in
the
the
greatest interface that never got popular, I would say.
Yeah, it was like the one reason that I used the iPad for a long time in the morning, just like flipping through articles, and like I had it curated the way that I wanted, and like that was where I got all my news from. And I thought it was great. And like the idea of having that's 100% golf content, like content that I might not find by myself, but content that like maybe the community has liked. So I think it's some combination of like content, part social network, but also like user generated in a lot of ways. So the cool thing about I think the cool thing about AI is like it can actually act as a user, and you can say, hey, you're a golf addict or you're a golf nerd, like go find all the content on the internet that you
Hmm.
think is cool, and that actually becomes one of your sources of information. And then you have another person that's like, all you care about is like funny golf stuff, go find all the funny golf stuff. And it's like being able to tag the content as like this was found by the funny guy and this was found by the serious guy. I think is kind of an interesting way to do it. So you can like simulate a social network before you actually have people using it. But that's all like super experimental kind of new stuff that we're starting to think about. But the reason we're thinking about it is it's just so important that we start attracting our own customers, and like we just
The
can't rely
top of the
on
funnel.
the top of the funnel. Yeah. And like, how do we get golfers to find out about us? Most golfers don't know about Golf Plus right now. So that's a huge opportunity to introduce them to the brand in a new way.
And in some ways, that might even be a slower ROI than your second category, where you're paying people to sign up for the wait list.
Totally.
Because now they're not coming to you with any intent to buy. They're just like, oh, that's a funny golf page. I'll go look at some of those memes. But then, like you said, you kind of drip it in there over a longer period of time, and hopefully they buy a headset and then convert to using Golf Plus.
Exactly. And I think the only way this works is like if it is like somewhat organic, right? We want to kind of build the simplest version of this that like our internal team would use, then expand it out to some of our better players
Mhm.
that have been around for a while. And if they're using it on a regular basis, then it's like kind of open it up over time so that more and more people come to it. And then the goal would be that like we're not spending a ton of money trying to get people to come to this website. It like either sort of catches on
Does
or
it itself. Yeah. It's so funny. Last night I just tested Don AI for the first time. I took every, so you can customize an AI pretty easily with GPT, and they have like a database template. So I took every transcript from every conversation I've done, like hundreds of hours of this stuff over years. And I basically said, like, you're Don AI, you're a fundraise, expert, go learn all the tips, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm trying to use that as like a top of funnel Twitter account. So like Don AI will go generate a bunch of stuff every hour and just automatically tweet. And to your point, like I don't want to think about it. I don't want to pay for it. Like if it works, it works. Great. If not, next experiment. But it's funny. We're basically doing a very similar concept of around like content aggregation, because it also pulls from Paul Graham's blog and those types of people as well to give advice. So interesting. We're both doing that conclusion.
Yeah, it's,
Um,
I mean, I feel like marketing in general is changing for a lot of people because things are moving more towards like creators and influencers rather than like big brands, right? At least I know in the golf world, like YouTube golf has been massive, and there's kind of a new golf influencer every day that's putting out some cool content. And as a consumer, it's really hard to keep up with everything. And you don't want to miss the new thing, but you can't spend all your time on like searching for this stuff. So I do think that there's a big opportunity for aggregation across like kind of every vertical to sort of come back. I think like, yeah, Flipboard did that really well originally. Social's like kind of just the very generic aggregator that I think is like starting to uh show its cracks, and it feels like there's an opportunity for kind of a new cleaner paradigm for discovery.
right. That draws on that social. Yep. I agree. Um, does anyone in the audience have questions for Ryan? We've got a top founder here. He's very capable. Ryan, I did a survey of who was everyone's favorite guest in 2024, and you and Anea were number one by far. So we appreciated your first conversation. So does anyone want to raise their hand? Thomas, also, you're the first person that sat through an entire meeting with the Google Glass on their face. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome.
Sure, always.
Yeah. Didn't you tell me you lived like 4 years straight without taking that off or something insane?
It's been 11 at this point,
Yeah.
pretty consistently. Yeah.
This kid's wild. Yeah, that's cool. Do you have a question for Ryan?
Yeah, in a minute. I'm just formulating it.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. I reminded myself to come back to you. Perfect. Anyone else have a thought or question for Ryan? All right, Peter. Hello, hello.
Hey, thanks for
Beautiful.
the really cool presentation. Was wondering if you thought about golf on the moon or Mars.
Yeah, we've thought about it. One of the things that we're trying to do from a brand perspective is we want to be a must-have experience for every golfer out there. So like early in our journey, we were really focused on trying to build a casual golf experience that would be appealing to non-golfers as a way of like growing the whole sport, right? There are a lot more non-golfers than golfers. And as things have developed, every time we've built something that's more appealing to golfers and like kind of golf centric, the product has gotten better. Our LTV has gone up, retention has gone up, engagement has gone up. And after we added like our survey, one of the big questions is like, are you a golfer or not? And if you are a golfer, like kind of what scores do you shoot? And the difference between like kind of center of the bell curve golfers who shoot like average scores in real life and non-golfers is like basically a 4x difference in terms of engagement, retention, spend, everything post-purchase. And these are all people who purchase the experience. So there's like already a decently high bar going in. So basically this year we've decided like for us, there are two themes for us this year. One is like playing on the year of efficiency, where it's like, okay, we're not going to do a ton of hiring. We're going to operate lean. I think things are going to be tough for the next couple of years for folks in this space. So like, let's hunker down and just be as efficient as possible. Two is the year of the golfer. So everything that we do this year is really focused on that center of the bullseye golf person who plays as a hobby. And with that in mind, stuff that's a bit more outlandish and a bit more, pushing the edges it can have an opposite effect on the brand where it's like, oh, okay, I was thinking this was a little golf game, and now that I see people like hitting 1,000-yard drives on the moon, like now I know it's a golf game and it's not for me because like I'm a serious golfer. So we want to make sure that the stuff that we're doing like really lands with serious golfers. So we're kind of going in the other direction, and a big focus for us this year is game improvement. I believe that as soon as we can build a version of the product that makes you better at golf in real life, it becomes a completely different buying decision. Right now, people are buying it because it looks like it's going to be fun. That's like why you would buy a golf game. But as soon as we can turn it into a tool and say, this is going to make you better at something that you already spend a lot of time doing, then, it's much easier to justify that purchase.
Peter, I didn't know where you were going with that question, but Ryan, you got to be the only person on earth that has that thoughtful of an answer for if you're gonna build a moon golf course. That was very
I just thought
interesting.
about marketing might be
Yeah, clearly you know your product and have your direction set. That was a great answer. That was cool.
I know which way we want to take it. It's not the first time the questions come up, so I was maybe pre-prepared.
Interesting. Thanks for that, Peter. That was a great question. Thomas, hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah, I saw a tweet, I think maybe it was late 2023, of a mixed reality mode for Golf Plus. I think it might have been on the Quest Pro based on the controllers that were in there, but curious how much you've explored mixed reality as a modality for golf. Is that something that your target user base really wants or has been asking for? And how do you prioritize that in your development? Given that it's kind of a completely different, I mean, there's overlap, but it's generally a completely different set of design requirements.
Totally. Great question. Yeah, I was in augmented reality before I got into VR, so that's been something that's been super interesting to me for a very long time. So when the new APIs came out, when the Quest Pro came out and you had color pass through for the first time, I thought it would be fun to experiment and kind of see what could work. And there were a few experiences that did feel pretty good. And for a while, I was like pretty gung ho about this, like build your own mini golf course in your room type of a thing. But after going further down that path, it did become pretty clear that that's like again in the opposite direction of like core golfer thing. So kind of put that on hold. And then, we look at our numbers a lot in terms of how many people are on Quest 2 versus Quest 3 and now Quest 3S and then Quest Pro, obviously. And after Quest Pro launched, I mean, it never got above like 1% or whatever. It was always less than 1%. So it was never big enough to justify doing anything serious there. When Quest 3 came out and now 3S, we are starting to see a trend in the right direction, but I think even now the majority of our players are still on Quest 2. So when we think about mixed reality, that's just a big factor is like how many people is this going to affect? It's trending in the right direction. So I do think that it's getting to the point now where it would be worth building something because that number is only going to increase in favor of pass through. And I think if we do something, we want to build something that is like in the game improvement training side of things. So, one of the ideas that we've played around with a lot is that the idea of standing inside the body of a pro golfer and seeing exactly where their arms are going through the swing so that you can see where you are versus where they are and just get a much better understanding of, body positions and very technical stuff like that. The other demo that we've worked on is using MR mode to hit a real golf ball. So you're hitting a real golf ball, and we're using a golf simulator to pick up the ball data, and then we're able to send that data to the headset and project it out in VR. So you're kind of seeing the course in VR and everything, but you see, real life down by your feet, and then you hit a real ball and you get a real response. And there's something really interesting about that, but the weight of the headset while swinging a golf club is like fairly noticeable. It's especially when you're like leaning over, So, and then there's just enough kind of distortion that like it can throw you off a little bit. So I think that's going to be a great use case when the headsets get a little bit smaller and like lighter weight. So it's an area I'm very excited about, but I do think it's like still a little bit early.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, again, I guess with if you have a lot of people on Quest 2, you're also probably making performance adjustments between the headsets, right? You have I mean, your
Yeah.
Quest 2 is not as much computer RAM available. So yeah, must be very
Yeah.
interesting from a development standpoint.
It is. With every new course we make, we try to push the limits of the graphics, but it just makes it worse on Quest 2. So we now have like different shaders for Quest 2, and unfortunately Quest 2 just can't look as good as Quest 3, but we want Quest 3 to look as good as possible.
Awesome question. Thank you, Thomas. And thank you, Ryan. All right, we'll do, I think, maybe one or two more here. Ryan, you good on time for another?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I got
cool.
that.
Aslan, hello, hello.
Hello, Don.
Come on up here. Was that the
Yeah,
Hobbit? Where are you? That's the Hobbit, right?
yeah, Hobbit Hall.
Well, I like the Hobbit more than Lord of the Rings. Fight me on it, whoever has a battle.
Yeah, you should try it too. Hi, Ryan. My question is, you seem like invested a lot to learning tools and also being a, realistic golf simulator, for your product. And I want to know about, how do you balance those? Probably your, learners have a, you know, a better retention for your product and for your company, but probably it decreases your reach, right? And also there are a bunch of other people out there, just wanna play that game, as a fun game. But it makes two different personas for your company. So how do you balance between them? So when you focus on learning side, probably you decrease your reach. If you go for the fun side, you probably lose your serious golf players. So with our company, we are in a similar situation. So I just wanna hear your experience on that to maybe use some reference.
Great, great,
Yeah.
great question. Great
Yeah,
question.
really good question. So there are a number of VR companies that went like 100% into training. Like Win Reality is a good example. And there are a handful of others. And then there's some that are kind of in the hybrid category. And then, there are others that are like us. Like right now, Golf Plus is not a learning tool. That we haven't marketed it that way and we haven't built it that way. It's purely, a golf game, and we like to think of it as like fairly realistic simulation, so that golfers find it, relatable. But going forward, the interesting thing about training and game improvement is when we look at our data, there's like no surprise here, but the players that have the best retention and the best engagement are also significantly better at the game than people that have poor retention and poor engagement. And it's definitely, a little bit of like chicken and the egg type of thing, where it's like obviously the people who play more are going to be better at it. But the interesting thing about it is looking at people just within the first couple weeks, your performance in that short amount of time has a pretty big indication as to like how long you're going to stick around. So if you kind of get good fast, you're way more likely to stick around than if you're struggling. So the part of the way that we're kind of justifying this investment on one hand is I just want to get people to be as good as possible, as quickly as possible from a pure retention engagement perspective. It's really hard for you to continue to spend money in the game and become a subscriber if you're not playing. So the more we can keep you playing, the better. And anytime you're doing something and you're getting better at it, and golf's kind of great in that respect because you have a score every time, so it's very easy to tell. You tend to keep doing it. People just generally like to get better at stuff. So from that perspective, I think there's a lot of reason for us to do this just from an engagement retention perspective. And then the reason I'm excited about, what I talked about before from a marketing perspective is there are just a lot of golfers that are not going to buy a golf game ever because they're not gamers. Most golfers are a bit older, and most of them wouldn't consider themselves gamers. And if we're a golf game, then it doesn't matter how great it is. Like, we're just not going to appeal to them. It's just not interesting. Occasionally we do get some of these people, and the reason that we get them is because their friends show it to them and demo it, and they're like, you have to do this. And then they try it and they're like, oh shit, this isn't a video game. This like feels like playing golf. And it's like, yeah, that's what we tried to tell you, but us telling you is not the same as your friend telling you. So going down the game improvement where it's like, we're actually going to build something that does make you better at golf in real life. Turns out whatever makes you better at golf in real life is also going to make you better at golf in Golf Plus. And that's how we're going to get you in the door. But after you come in, you're going to come in because you think you want to get better in real life, but you're going to stay because you start playing the game and you realize that like, oh, this is actually like, it feels like playing real golf, which is something that golfers love to do. And that's what's going to keep you there. And you may or may not continue to commit to the game improvement side of things because that is like training and work and it's not as fun. But we're just looking at that as like kind of a way to get you into the experience in the first place. And the core experience is always going to be the game itself.
Okay, thank you.
It's remember back in the day how Facebook said, if we can get you to add 7 friends within the first week, then we'll have you for years to come. That's kind of what you're talking about in some ways, where it's like, if people get up to speed and get good at the game within the first week or month, then they're more likely to be power users. So that's what you're optimizing for. So that's very granular.
Yeah, 100%. We try to kind of target people hitting like 500 shots within their first 7 days. And if they do that, they're way more likely to stick around. So we're starting to work on systems that just like sort of guide you towards getting to those 500 shots.
May I have another question?
Yeah,
Maybe
one
one?
sec. Let me just get through Tejas and then we'll come back to you. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. All right, Tejas, let me, one question before Tejas, stupid idea, probably, Ryan. Have you ever thought of like hiring someone to go to golf pro shops at country clubs with a headset for like, $50 an hour and just like setting up at some of the major country clubs? Because I think they'd want to do that with you.
Yeah, we've talked about doing stuff like that. We also have gone to a lot of golf tournaments, and we're kind of using that as a starting point. I think there is something there, but again, it's one of those things where it's really hard to track the ROI on that.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Tejas, come on up here.
Hey Don, hey Ryan, thanks for your time. I think you just answered my question previously, but I'll ask it anyway. I hear you talk about like data a lot and trends and these metrics. And I was wondering, when you were just starting, what kinds of key metrics were you and your team looking at, and how did you collect that data?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, we use Amplitude, which is a service out there where you can send metrics up, and it's used, for web and mobile and stuff like that. So it's not unique to VR in any way, but we use that from the very beginning, and we basically track everything that you could possibly do in the game. So we've been kind of crazy about that from the start. To be honest, I think for the first almost year, at least probably the first year or so, we really didn't spend that much time looking at the data. One of the benefits of building an experience where I'm the core user of this, like I play every day for fun, and so does my co-founder, and so do like our first handful of team members, and then we have this great community on Discord. it was always pretty obvious to us like what wasn't working.
Okay.
Not necessarily from a data perspective, but for that first year, it was just so clear that like we launched like pretty quick and pretty dirty, and like there were just, bugs and issues and stuff like that. And then as users of the game ourselves, there were a bunch of like items we wanted to add. So we really just focused on building the stuff that the community was asking for and that we thought would be cool. And then I'd say it was after about 2 years where we kind of hired a data scientist and got our executive dashboards together and like really started to kind of measure engagement and retention. I think retention's always a tough one to start looking at because it's like, oh shit, like not that many people stick around. But it's really good to be honest with yourself and then like start to just dig in deeper as to like what are the various points where people do drop off. And I think when you first start looking at it, it can definitely feel overwhelming and it's like, oh my God, we've got problems everywhere, like what are we going to do? And what's worked really well for us is just really trying to focus on one piece of the funnel before getting
Okay.
so it's like if for some reason, the first 7 days is just like way worse than you expected, like focus on the first 7 days. Maybe it's the first 3 days. Like maybe that's where, you're seeing a worse than expected drop off. Or in other cases, it's like long-term retention where it's like, okay, well, once they finish the game, then like they just don't come back for any reason. So like after 30 days, it's like once you get through this, campaign or whatever it is, like they're done. So then it becomes a question of like, is it worth investing in evergreen features or, whatever else? And, for the first couple of years of our experience, we didn't have any DLC or anything like that. So it was really just about first time purchase. And that was the only way that we were going to generate any revenue. So we weren't really incentivized from a business perspective to like keep people around forever because like we got paid up front and that was kind of it. But over time, as we started to add DLC and courses, and now we have subscription, our post-purchase revenue is larger than the purchase itself. So now,
Wow.
like our biggest incentive is actually finding higher qualified people and not worrying about the upfront purchase as much as worrying about how we can ensure that they stick around and they subscribe and they keep using the product. So I think based on your business model, that can have a huge impact on like what you should be looking at to optimize for.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those insights, Ryan. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. My pleasure.
Right, we just had Richard share a photo from your last visit. You remember this putter that you were trying to work on with the
Oh
tracking pin
yeah,
on it?
yeah. I got it
That's
working.
awesome.
It's
Did
actually
you?
it improved quite well. I don't know if I would say quite a bit, but it's slightly less hacky. Yeah. Got this little clay thing that I molded. So
I'll
it's
be
not
honest, I only see.
not
Oh,
taped on.
wow, that is
Not taped
really
on. It just screws onto the top now. So
wow.
we got a 3D printer playing around with different ways of connecting it. So we're still going.
And that's for putting exclusively?
Right now it is. You can use it for other stuff, but I did manage to break one of these styluses trying to do a full swing and launching the thing across the office. So not quite ready for that.
Yeah. I could have told you that was gonna happen. Yeah. Good photo memory there, Richard. Thank you. That was perfect.
Love it.
All right. Richard, Christine, we'll do you two as the last ones. We not make sure Ryan gets out of here. So Richard, great photo share, and please come ask your question.
Yeah, so kind of on that topic, so I've got my own like version, like a VR katana prototype. And so I was just interested to hear what your progress you made with that, and if you're planning on making that into a real product in the future, or still early prototypes. And my view is like I think if you were to do like crowdfunding, some like a prop like that would be useful for getting people to actually like throw in like a decent amount of money. I wanted to get your thoughts and input.
I think that's a great idea. We're not far enough along to we haven't even thought about like crowdfunding or anything like that yet. But we are pretty bullish on building something over time. I can't say too much, but there, you know, our expectation is that there will be some external sensors that are available. You know, the stylus is like totally a hack. Like we wouldn't actually release something using this because it's pretty, it's obviously not intended for that purpose, and it is a little weird. But I do think that there are going to be other sensors that come out. And my ultimate goal is to figure out a way to attach one of these sensors to your actual golf club. So I think starting with putting makes sense because it's, you know, it's moving fairly slow and you have room in your house to do it. But over time, I'd love for you to be able to attach it to any golf club. So rather than us building like a full length accessory, like we have, this is like one built by another company, and been playing around with different ways to attach stuff there at the bottom. But rather than us building like a full thing like this, I like the idea of just building the, you know, the piece that connects to the club so that it's kind of as small as possible and it's portable, and like, you know, we could still sell these as separate attachments, but this is like the thing that actually has the sensor in it and can track and everything like that. So that's how we're thinking about it. Obviously, it's contingent on the sensor coming out, and the tracking being accurate enough. But you know, when we do release one of these, similar to everything else I've been saying, we're so focused on making this like a tool for golfers that it's really important to me that the physics are like accurate and the weight is accurate, and that by using this, it doesn't have a negative effect on your game, and it definitely has a positive effect on your game. So we're still pretty early in the R&D phase, and I think realistically, this would be something we'd be trying to get out by like next Christmas, like holiday 2026.
Cool, thanks.
Wow, that's fast. That's awesome. All right, Christine, let's bring you up for the finale question here.
All right. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for your time today. My question is basically tagging on to Tejas' question early on. How quickly, because you said you built like something really dirty just to get in the marketplace. How frequently did you iterate to keep your early users engaged and not just have them like, this sucks, I'm out of here?
Yeah, so to be fair, I'm probably harsher on it than our users might be, but we actually went through 7 rounds of beta before even releasing the first version of the product. So like right from the very beginning, we put a beta, we like hit up Reddit and got a beta list going and set up a Discord. And my co-founder kind of ran the community side while I was working on building it. And you know, we put out a beta, and the very first beta was like, I mean, I should probably find it and try it, but it was like barely functional. And, you know, a lot of our users were like, this sucks. But with every beta, we'd only pick 100 people from the list. And the list kept growing. So we had like, I think like up to 1,000. So the nice thing is for every new beta, we would pick 100 new people. So we'd always have a fresh perspective. And then the old people could keep playing if they wanted to. And you know, a lot of people would try the first version and be like, this is terrible, like, oh my God, like there's no way I'd ever buy this. And then they'd skip the next few betas and they'd maybe come back for the 4th beta and they'd be like, oh my God, you addressed all of my feedback. I can't believe it. This is great. So, you know, we get more and more comments like that. And of course, we're playing the game the whole time ourselves. So like we're trying to be pretty realistic about the experience. And you know, the nice thing about doing it that way is by the time we launched, we had, you know, already had probably up to almost 1,000 people who had played the beta, and a good portion of those were in Discord. And we really promoted, you know, everyone in Discord that had been there in the beta that, you know, felt good about the experience. Like we asked them, like, oh, please go leave a review right from the beginning. Like we want to get off to a hot start. The other thing that we did from the very beginning is we've always responded to every single non-5-star review. We read every single one, we categorize it, we respond to it. We still do that today. We've got over 60,000 reviews, and we've managed to flip a ton of 1-star reviews, because usually it's just like some sort of either like user issue or system issue or just misunderstanding. And like our, you know, our community service team will literally go into a multiplayer match with one person and just like spend half an hour working through the issue. And once you do that, like you can convert people into super fans that way. So that was kind of our big thing from the beginning, is like, we want to have a great customer experience. We want to address everybody's feedback. We're not gonna do everything that people ask for, because like, that, then some people ask to go in this way and some people ask to go this way, and like you just can't do that. But at least we'll give people good reasons as to why we're doing things and why we're not doing things. And I think we put out, since we've released, on average, I think we've done a release every 2 weeks. So we've done, at this point, I think we've done like, I don't know, 150 releases or something like that since like 2020. So that's a big part of our culture, is just building it in a way where we can rapidly iterate. And the benefit of that is if we make a mistake, we're going to fix it really quickly. But we can also just sort of try to pare down our concepts to be as small as possible so that we can validate them. And if they, if they show any promise, then we can double down. But if they're not working at all, at least we didn't invest too much time into, something that didn't deliver.
Right, great. And also, are the traditional golfers active in your Discord, or is it mostly the gamer types?
I'd say it's more of the gamer types,
Right.
but our Discord probably does skew a bit older than most, just with our demographic. So about 80, yeah, I think it's about 80% of our active players are golfers, like consider themselves golfers. And in Discord, it's probably closer to like 60 or 70%, if I had to guess. But one cool thing that we've seen is a lot of the people that keep playing and become very active in Discord actually are more likely to go take up golf in real life. So it's fun to see sort of the crossover going the other way.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's super cool. Bringing the virtual to the reality.
That's
No,
right.
bringing the reality to the virtual, whatever it is.
Oh,
Very
we
cool.
go both ways.
Yeah, there, well said.
Undisputed.
Yeah. Nobody knows what's what anymore. All right, Ryan, thanks a ton for joining us. I really appreciate this. It's so interesting to learn how you're thinking about this. You have, maybe I didn't notice it last time because we talked more about your personal story and kind of the evolution of the company. But at least I'm hearing it more now, is this relentless focus on the year of the golfer, as you put it. Like almost every answer you had, every logic stemmed from the idea that like this is the persona you're serving for this year, and that's what's important to you. And so I think that's a great lesson everyone should take, is how clearly laser focused you are on like delivering a great experience for a very particular type of potential customer or
Yeah,
user.
and I will say this is the first year that we've done a very good job of that. And I will say it has made things so much better across the entire company because, I'll be in meetings where I'm not really participating, and someone will say something and someone else will be like, well, this is the year of the golfer, so I don't like, do you think that'll attract more golfers or not? And it's like, oh, I guess it probably isn't really golfer focused. It's like, okay, great, then we're not going to do that right now. So it just like makes every decision 1,000 times easier once you've created a little bit of a forcing function and saying, hey, we're going to get to all this other stuff, just like not right now. We can only do certain things right now. So I highly recommend it. I wish we had done it sooner, but yeah, so far it's been great internally.
I think they call that culture.
Culture.
Yeah. I
Working
think
on it.
so. All right. If everyone could unmute and give a little round of applause for Ryan, please. Thank you, Ryan. That was awesome.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Feel free to reach out on Twitter or anything else. Always excited to talk to other folks in the space.
Yeah, it's been a brutal last few months. To your point, AI has sucked all the wind out of everything, and so I'm trying to now focus less on pure VR and more on the marketing side. And so having you come talk about this is really important. It's funny, I've lost more members in the last month than I ever have, as I've talked less about pure VR and more about marketing. And like that sucks, but I also feel like this is definitely the right direction everyone needs to be going. And so I'm trying to really deliver that point. So that was really helpful to have you be able to talk about both.
I completely agree. I think, yeah, we've reached the point where you definitely got to think about how you're going to market your product. You can't just get it on the store and assume it'll go well. But I'm optimistic long term. I think this is still the greatest medium ever.
Yeah, well said. All right, everybody. Adios. Send Ryan some love. Go buy Golf Plus's new skins, everything you can if you have a chance. And Thomas, keep wearing those AR glasses. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Don. See ya.
Adios. Thank you, Ryan.
you.
Thanks from all of us.